My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
You can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for
It
them.
is worth it. Just focus on the next
Doesn't
step.
matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing
That
something.
is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's a
anything else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to
Oh,
Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these days,
love
right?
working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about,
hindsight, that
I've
was,
also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
it
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
I'm going to do your intro, but I just want to start with a confession. I'd never heard of Queenstown Resort College, and I had these students sort of going to me, "Oh, I'm thinking about this," which hence I then trolled some of the graduates, and out came you, and that's why then I reached out. So I'm really stoked to welcome you aboard and introduce you, Amy Coulton, who again is going to talk a lot about her career in tourism, adventure, and her experience at Queenstown Resort College. So we're really thrilled to have you here today. Can I also say, like Grace, if anyone is down on life, do not follow Amy on social media because, for the love of me, there's diving, swimming, surfing, hiking, like it goes on and on. So again, I'd avoid these two, that's for sure. Look, your journey with QRC began in 2016 after leaving school at 17, but really it started at a high school career expo. You saw the energy, the adventure, the lifestyle that QRC offered, and you knew you wanted a piece of it. So at 18, that's where you headed. For those unfamiliar, QRC offers 21-month Level 6 diplomas in hospitality management and adventure tourism, alongside there's shorter courses in things like AI and business. It's a highly regarded school, rated excellent with its 2022 External Evaluation Review report, with global pathways and strong industry connections, including partnerships with Air New Zealand, all focused on developing future leaders for tourism. You embraced everything Queenstown had to offer, like I mentioned earlier, hikes, camping, cold swims, and pushing yourself alongside people who became lifelong friends. QRC didn't just give you a qualification, it shaped your mindset. Your internship in the Bay of Islands with Fuller's Great Sights, which is now Explore Group, was a turning point. As a deckhand, you learned how to balance safety and experience, understanding the responsibility that comes with creating memorable moments for others. From there, the world expanded. You worked across the Cook Islands, French Polynesia, Fiji, Mexico, the United States, Australia, and beyond. Grace's eyes just lit up, eventually moving into super yachting in the Kimberley. Over 4 years, you built a career that was exciting, demanding, and full of once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Standout moment came during 2024, yacht charters in French Polynesia, where you worked as both a chef and administration manager. Now based on the Sunshine Coast, where you're streaming in today as a personal chef, you're finding more balance while continuing to grow. Your story speaks to those considering tourism as more than just a job, but a lifestyle. It also highlights the realities, the pressure, the pace, and the importance of protecting your well-being, which we'll discuss today. As you look ahead, you're drawn towards building your own business within yachting, concierge, and property management. And when we circle back to QRC's values, they are leadership, communication, growth, and connection. And I think your journey reflects every single one of those. Who is this for? Students wanting adventure as a career, those that love tourism-based activities, those that want to travel, explore, and share their own love of things like rivers, oceans, forests, and activities. We can do all of them. If this sounds like the life for you, you're in luck. We have Amy here today, and she's going to share all that with us. Welcome, Amy. I didn't mention much about school other than the age you left. Can we talk about where you went to school, what sort of student you were, what you got involved in, so kids can get a picture of that?
Hi, nice to meet you. I grew up in Nelson, so top of the South Island. I grew up, me, two younger sisters, mum and dad. We were always out hiking, adventuring. Mum and dad had us out camping most weekends. School was good. Definitely drawn towards outdoor ed, PE, geography subjects, the more tangible subjects. Loved doing work experience. Was out of school as much as I could be, doing competitive swimming, triathlons, adventure racing all through the North Island. and then obviously outdoor ed camps, and everything that came with that. I think a very like formative thing for me at school was doing the Spirit of Adventure. Mum will say that was the the biggest she's ever seen my grin when I got off the plane back from the Spirit of Adventure, 10 days sailing around the Bay of Islands and Auckland, and kind of that click of that realization that, oh, I could do something that's not, not normal as per se. And, these people that are sailing this boat around, they get to do that as work. And that's awesome. So kind of that was the kind of tick over factor, I think, for me, in terms of where life has led me so far.
Yeah. So what did you get level 1, 2, 3, or did you leave earlier? Yeah, you got level
I
1.
finished year and did all that, did the normal school, I guess, but more leaning towards, I mean, you can still get all your credits through outdoor ed and PE and geography. So got it all done.
Yeah, yeah. So you're sitting there, you've been on the Spirit, you're now reflecting, the pressure comes on towards the end of school. How did you, I mean, I'm thinking, obviously, I've already spoiled that alert, which was you went to QRC. Talk about that idea. Did you run into it at an expo? And what was your thinking about getting down there? You're Nelson, you've still got to get further down the country. Love to hear how all of that went for you.
Yeah, I hadn't really put too much thought into what I wanted to study, and because a lot of it was you'd see the brochures at your high school with Victoria University, Auckland University, Otago University, and kind of scrolling through them, nothing really stood out to me, and I kind of was just going through the motions, I guess, finishing off high school. I had a pretty solid job and a supportive family, so I was like, if I need to just chill, and I've always been driven that if something doesn't really light the fire inside me, I'm not going to do it. So it was a good factor. And then I went across to a career expo at the college next door, and I saw QRC, and I still remember the big banner of someone bungee jumping, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. So kind of went and talked to them. I remember going home to mum being like, found where I'm going to go, like big 180 on going to study versus had no interest in kind of a standard sitting in a classroom university. So that was kind of that. And then I'd been working again when I finished high school, just worked full time all summer because, Dad is very financially literate and he taught us to be extremely financially literate. So it's kind of like you want to make the most of your university experience. So I guess that was a big part of my preparation, was preparing myself financially. And I've always been good with, I guess I was already looking up trails and like adventures that I wanted to do in Queenstown, and I had my accommodation all sorted, and, I got a car that was going to be suitable for the snow and ice and these sorts of things. But I guess that was a big part of the preparation, and having my parents help along that last summer after high school and leading into going down to Queenstown. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the way it dawns on me is some kids, once they decide not uni, then study isn't an option, or they don't understand there's so many other really technical. We had a guy yesterday, who's into dive industry, and he's talking about the physics, the chemistry, the gas bottle, it's not like your learning has to end just because you don't have to go to university. And I think that was the bit that when I went to the QRC website, it was good. It was nice to see there were kids, and so kids who approached me and went, I could just work on a boat. I said, yeah, you could, but you could also get qualified and then see what else opens up. So I did. Is that how you sort of thought about it, that you still wanted study or a qualification first?
I think so. I think that's quite ingrained, and it has, in hindsight, come back around to be really beneficial to have a qualification underneath my belt. In terms of a diploma, it has come in handy definitely a lot of times already in terms of applying for jobs and things. I think, going straight out of school into a job has its benefits for sure, but I do think that QRC is a really nice kind of central point between doing the full, university degree, masters, etc., where it's very academic focused, and then that mix of just going straight into a job. I think it's a really nice middle ground where you still get that qualification, like you said, but you can have fun along the way, and it's very practical learning as well.
Yeah. So can you just talk us through the application, maybe the cost, how you got sort of down there, because we talk a lot, kids, we don't want to underestimate moving away from home, just like someone might go down to Wellington to Vic, you're heading down to Queenstown. What did the halls look like? How did you pay for it? How did you apply? Is it similar to uni or not, sort of thing?
Yeah, quite a similar application to university in terms of showing that you had your grades and your NCEA credits and you had the drive behind you. You had to actually make a video or like an application as to why you wanted to go down. And I had an old dinged up surfboard that was beyond repair. So I painted it and I painted my story on it, which I have a photo of somewhere. I should send it through to you. But it's actually really cool. I painted this whole story on why my history, like a lot of ocean and beach and camping, and that I want to help people in tourism and this sorts of things. So that was kind of my application to go to Queenstown Resort College, which I've just forgotten about until now. um, but yeah, and then getting ready, they had a halls of residence, which is an old hotel up on the side of the hill in Queenstown that they'd converted to a uni halls because Queenstown and accommodation in Queenstown is notoriously hard to find. So that was a massive benefit to have that halls, and you've kind of then just got automatic friends when you arrive. And yeah, we pretty much packed up my car, put my bike on the back, and then my parents and I drove down in separate cars, did a road trip down there. We spent a few days down there beforehand just to get me all settled in before university started. So in terms of that, it was all pretty easy. As quite a confident person, I found it quite easy, but that is different for everybody.
And what are you in a single room, double room, being fed?
It was self-catered. So there was massive kitchens, similar to maybe a backpackers or a motel situation. They would do some meals occasionally on weekends. And the first term I shared a room, and then the second term I was an RA, residential assistant. So I got my own room, although most of the time when you're at university, you're out in communal areas and hanging out in other people's rooms and mixing around. So yeah, very social.
Yep.
I was gonna ask about like you're extroverted, etc. Maybe I'm just generalizing. Were most people pretty extroverted, or what do you reckon was the mix?
I think most people naturally were. It was also that it's a big learning curve going from high school where you kind of just get lumped, you just get put in with whoever's in the same, suburb as you essentially, or the same. Your parents essentially decide what high school you go to most of the time. So you kind of just make friends based on proximity and convenience. And then you go to university where people have actually decided to be there. And it's a massive eye-opener because at high school you can almost, I felt like I was too much or I was too adventurous almost, which is a big overstatement. But it was really nice to then meet these people and be living with these people that were like, yeah, let's get up at 3 a.m. and go for a hike, or like, let's go ski all day and then go swim in the lake, like it was just a massive jump and being like, oh, these are my people. And it was so nice. But yes, I think most people naturally were. But then when you're around the right people, it brings out that extrovertedness and that excitement for life.
Yeah. Yeah, the 21 months. So I'm calling it it's a 2-year diploma. Is that, when did you start and finish?
So it started April 2016 and we went until October, and then so that was 6 months. And then we did a 6-month internship over that New Zealand summer, which is when I went up to Fuller's. And then when you come back the next April, you do another 6 months. So it was 12 months of study, but an 18-month course overall. So then the second 6 months, you rely on your internship learnings and experience and implement that into the learnings, which I think is a really good course.
Yeah. Well, on that then, just quickly, if you can just, well, before I ask my next question, cost. Did you, like a uni student, just student loan it and go, it's 2 years of my life, I'm just going to pay for it. I'm paying for accommodation, course fees. How did that go first?
I can't remember exactly. I remember I saved about $10,000 in that summer, working really hard, living at home. So that went towards a lot of my course costs. And then I got on StudyLink. So I think that covered my accommodation and maybe $50 a week worth of food. And then the rest was just on student loan. And then I think I came out of it about $30,000 or $40,000 in debt, which I mean is pretty good for a certificate. But in the middle there, we have to remember that there was a 6-month paid internship. So I was making money and I did save money. I saved about another $8,000 over those 6 months while I was up in the Bay of Islands. So a little bit tricky to break down, but yeah, did come out in debt and did just eventually pay it off. And
Yeah. So the learning, can you talk us through, even if you can remember your first 6 months, and then maybe how that internship goes and the sort of variation from you to maybe some of the other people you knew where they shot off to, and then that final step of learning? So kids who are now already going, geez, this sounds like me, can get a feel of that.
it was, the course structure was awesome. I think that doing an internship in the middle of a big learning diploma degree, whatever you're learning, was awesome, because then everything that you've experienced firsthand and had to witness. I mean, going back to the first 6 months, you learn about how businesses should look and how a tourism business should run in terms of SOPs, risk management, safety management, but also that blend of fun. And even then we did accounting and marketing, just every kind of aspect of a tourism business or a business in general. So then you go into this internship and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that, learning that, and this is how that should look, and that matches up with, this risk management procedure, etc. And then you go back to your second 6 months of study and you're reviewing the business that you worked for almost, and seeing how they could improve and what they were doing right, and using that real world tangible experience that you experienced to learn more and to do papers.
And by papers, are you doing assessments? Are they written essays, or sometimes how are they measuring you, I suppose, compared to uni getting ABCD?
Yeah, I can imagine it was quite difficult for them to come up with a marking criteria, because everyone goes into very different jobs. Some people went up to Hamilton Island to work in 5-star resorts. Some people went and worked at Bungie. Some people, we went up and worked on yachts. Some people went and worked for a dive company. So it would be quite difficult to mark based on, there were very different roles. Some of it was written, some of it was spoken, some of it was, accounting was mostly done on Excel. Marketing is quite a creative course. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm gathering that I'm feeling they need to be really broad, because like you're saying, they don't know whether you're going to be climbing trees or running a high-end business, where the accounting and the finances is the thing. So I imagine they're doing a lot. Before we move past QRC, how did you find the atmosphere, the organisation, the care, the quality of where you went, and the money your 30K of debt went into? Because like I say, a lot of kids are saying, let's do it. And I just want to assure them, or at least they can hear from you about how you found it.
I loved it, and I always felt safe, always felt included, always felt like my teachers and tutors were listening to me. We had quite small classes. It was similar to a high school classroom. So we had between 20 and 30 students, and we always were together. Whereas at a standard university, you kind of do different lectures throughout the day. So you're always swapping with who you're with. Whereas we would go to class at 8 a.m. We would move around the classrooms together until 4 p.m. and then we would all go home. So that was quite nice to be able to create really nice friendships in class, and then that went to outside of class.
No, that's good. What does your day look like, Amy? Like, what are you, getting up at 10, or like my uni days? Or
We'd try to get up. Winter down there is pretty brutal. The sun doesn't come up until 8 a.m. So it would be like starting university in the dark and kind of going until sunset. So that was a bit rough, but that's okay. There's always lots to do. There's night skiing, there's bars, there's restaurants, there's live music. There's so much to do in Queenstown when it's dark. But yes, our days were at least once a week we'd go out on a famil. So we'd do an activity within the Queenstown area. At the time, there were over 200 tourism activities in Queenstown. So we had more than enough to do. And then on our weekends and time off, and if we had, an EDD half a day, we would be able to go out and do a tourism activity in order to learn more. And what a great way to spend your afternoon, going jet boating or going on a canyon swing when you're at university.
Yeah. Look, can I then ask, because this is a problem for everyone. You've suddenly finished your degree, you've got your diploma, you've got something, But of course, it's a giant leap to where the hell do I go now? There's no guarantees. So what was your thought process during QRC, or similar to school to QRC? Now I'm going QRC to your life, your employment, becoming a working person. What happened and how'd you do it?
It is a massive jump. And I think, the blend of going from high school to a tertiary institute or to moving out of home is big. And then going from a learning environment where, again, you're kind of grouped with these people and it's structured in a way where you've got people kind of telling you what to do at what time. And then going from that into the real world and being like, well, where the heck do I want to go next? Like physically and, geographically and financially, like what do I want to do? There's so many options out there now. And I can imagine even more nowadays for, young adults. It's just the options endless. I think for me, I was really drawn to, because I'd done an internship in the Bay of Islands, that was always an option. They'd said they would love to have us back once we graduated. So that was my plan B, I guess. I was drawn to doing something else with plan A. I wasn't too sure what that was. But as I said before, like something, if it's not going to really, really excite me and light me up inside, I'm not going to do it. So it came down to that. My friend, it was just a phone call, honestly. My friend who had actually been on the spread of adventure with, she was living in the Cook Islands at the time. And she'd mentioned, well, you should just come over here for a couple of weeks between when you graduate uni and when you go back up to the Bay of Islands. So, okay, sounds good. Haven't been there. That sounds fun. I've got a friend there. I've got some free accommodation. Why not? It's a nice tropical island. So went and did that and ended up there for a year and a half. So didn't leave. But it's those kind of things. I think if you have your blinders on as such, or you have just one path that you really, really want to go on and you're really stuck to that, I think it can close off a lot of other opportunities. But there is again, in saying that, the flip side is that there's that decision paralysis, which you were like leaning towards, I think, is that there's so many options out there. And it's kind of seeing where you actually see yourself living and working and who you see yourself as a person and what job you can do then to help encourage that and to be a good version of yourself.
What did you do in the Cook Islands for a year and a half?
I worked as a tour guide. We did turtle tours, snorkeling. We did nighttime paddleboarding in the lagoon, kite surfing. It was a general tourism business, so they had a lot of bits and bobs going, which was very fun.
Yeah. Wicked. Okay, so after that year and a half, where does life lead you there?
I ended up going back to the Bay of Islands, working for a different company. There'd been a little bit of political things going on with the big tour companies, so decided to go for a small company, and it was a sailing boat, and I'd always wanted to learn how to sail again. It was one of those moments where I was like, I could go work for this company that I've worked for before. They were great, but I do want to learn this new skill. I want to learn how to sail, and the skipper on the boat was really open and welcoming and just kind of took me under his wing and really wanted to teach me. And also in turn, they hadn't had anyone that worked with them before that had like a tertiary education or experience in tourism on the tourism management side of things. So it was a great combination.
Yeah. So tell me about this. What does this boat do? I mean, it leaves from the Bay of Islands and only stays New Zealand, or is it heading to the Pacific? What was it?
This one was a small 30-foot catamaran, which was built in the North Island, and then they'd brought it up to the Bay of Islands. And we did day trips around the Bay of Islands. So we would sail out for a few hours, go to an island for a few hours. I'd make a picnic lunch, people would go paddleboarding, and then we'd sail home for the afternoon. So quite a small yacht, but it was a really good place to start. And it's a nice basic boat to learn how to sail on. It didn't have all the trimmings and bits and bobs, which can get a bit confusing if you're trying to learn how a boat and all the different ropes and pulleys work.
Yeah. Because I suggested in my intro, there's a lot of the world about to come your way, isn't there? Like, is that next step where suddenly the world blew up and you're off and you're French Polynesia?
Yeah.
So how did that all come about?
Kind of, yeah. So from this, the kind of culmination of growing up in the outdoors, doing the Queenstown, getting that tertiary education behind me and getting that paperwork and that actual knowledge behind me, and then learning how to sail. And I'd spoken to a chef one day, and he'd mentioned that he'd worked on super yachts. And I'd only seen one super yacht up in the Bay of Islands, Michael Hill's yacht, because yachts didn't really come to the Bay of Islands at that time, I guess. And he'd kind of mentioned, he's like, oh, if you could, like, you should go do super yachts. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was quite comfortable doing what I was doing on my own. It was a 12-person tour. It was really nice. I loved the Bay of Islands. But it was kind of that moment where I decided to, look into it. And it was quite a big jump in terms of, oh, yes, I could do that. And I've got the skills and I've got the motivation and I can work hard. And I've also got, like I said, all these tangible skills. Like I can sail, I can scuba dive, I can do these things, as well as having that backing of having that education and this diploma behind me.
Yeah, because it was interesting. I think I saw that the Super Yacht Academy in Auckland follows you, because you probably, if you were a North Island kid, possibly you might have gone there, like that. But it's getting that, yeah. And I'm starting to learn, particularly with tourism, it's good to have a range. You learnt to sail. There's the super yacht thing, which people can go to the academy. There's QRC, there's diving. We had a Whitianga dive zone yesterday. Like, it's building that, not knowing really what the next boss might want, is it? And that's what you sound like to me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the captains and owners of yachts, and even the role that I have now, which is land-based, but having these really tangible, wide range of skills, it's kind of that putting as many things in your kitty as you can, and not just doing it for the love of it, rather than sticking to one track and only doing this one thing. Because, as many different skills as you have, it might seem like they don't add up, but a lot of times, especially with yachting and these kind of personal assistant private roles with wealthy, high net wealth people, they do want a wide range of things where they can be like, oh, can you build this cabinet for me? And you're like, yeah. And then that afternoon you're going scuba diving. It's just like this random range of skills and things that you've picked up along your life that might not seem to fit together, but that makes for a well-rounded person.
So the boating thing, we had Alan Butler on who worked on super yachts. So you had a period of your life where you were pretty much doing the same thing. You were available to super yacht people. Is that how that worked?
Yes. So I listened to Alan's podcast.
Yes.
And yeah, so when I moved over, I got a job. I did my yachting certification, my STCW, and then you have to get a seafarer's medical certificate, which is kind of a step up from a standard medical, because you are going to be out at sea, as Alan would have explained. And got a job on a yacht in the Kimberley. Again, didn't have any super yacht experience as such, but because of these separate roles that I'd done throughout, since I left high school, they could see that I was a hard worker and had these different skills in different aspects in terms of administration, cooking, underwater cleaning, these sorts of different things where I would be well-rounded to work on a yacht. So got that job and spent between the better part of 4 years living on luxury yachts throughout Australia and the South Pacific.
Surely you've got some stories to share with us. I know one of Alan's was, parked up in the Maldives and for a month where the boss just says, well, just, drop anchor. What were some of those experiences like? Because let's face it, the fantasy is still alive in everyone's mind. If they have the chance to do tourism and they want to do what you're doing, what were those experiences like? Good and bad? Because I know not all of hers were good either. So can you share some of those?
Absolutely. So as Alan would have said, super yachting is a very mysterious industry to some. Now we have Below Deck, so a lot of people are aware of the super yacht industry, which I think is great. It's a reality TV show, but at least it gives people an insight into what you go through, because a lot of, it's very private. You sign NDAs, you do all this stuff, so you can't exactly film or tell people where you are or tell people who you work for in some situations. So yeah, the highs, it's a massive roller coaster. The highs are so high. You wake up and you're in, one of my favorite mornings was we're in Moorea in French Polynesia, probably seeing all the beautiful mountains. Waking up, going for a morning flight board, like an e-foil through the lagoon, seeing the turtles and the rays below you, and it's, the sun's rising and it's just beautiful. And then I go back to the yacht and I go, do my work for the day, and then we go for a dive after work because we've got a full dive team and things on board. So just things like this where it's just so stunning and you just have to pinch yourself. This is what you're doing for work. And then the flip side of that is 3 days later, you've got the boss on board. You're working 18-hour days. I haven't sat down since 5 a.m. It's now 10 p.m. I haven't eaten a proper meal. You just worked off your feet, just trying to get through the days. So it definitely has highs and lows. But like the life experiences and the things I've seen from living and working on a yacht is unlike anything else. I mean, the places I've seen that you can't get to via land or without, sailing for days on end without seeing land is pretty special.
Yeah. Because that employment code, like doing an 18-hour day, not highly legal if you're in a country, but maybe on the sea, that there is none. Because I think that's something kids do need to understand. And what, you don't have really an employment thing, or is it sort of like, well, you're going to do that for a week, but the next week you might not be? Is that?
It's kind of you have a contract, there's legal obligations as a worker. You're either an employee to the company that the boat is owned under, or because owners have different ways of going about owning a yacht, or you're a contractor. So I've had both. Contractor, obviously, you manage your own taxes, you manage your own insurances and things like this. You're under a work insurance when you're on a yacht. That's part of working on a yacht. You have that safety net there, but it just is quite different in terms of different yachts and depending on what schedule and rotation you might be on. It's kind of an unspoken that it's kind of give and take. So you might have a relaxed week at work and then the next week is going to be hectic, or you might do 2 months straight of a boss trip where you're doing these hours endlessly and there's nothing that is too hard for you to do. You will do everything that you get asked to do. And then you go and have 2 months off and you can travel and you're paid for that time to be off the yacht. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I am aware that there are laws around it, but again, because you're in international waters, it's very tricky. That's the same with tax. So yeah, no one really wants to talk about it. So it's kind of a yachty.
Yeah. Well,
When you talk to other bodies, I think that's, it can just get a little bit grab. But when you talk to people in the same industry, we can have a laugh about it and a moan about it. But yeah, overall it's good.
everyone has those where, like, I like how you said it, it's the give and the take. And I am curious, right? Because especially with the yachts part, but just in general, you'll watch often, the FIFO, the fly in, fly out, for those people who don't know, in Perth, or even in Fonterra, people are working those crazy night shifts, and that money and the highs and the lows really do keep them in it. And it's got to be hard to then go from something like that where you say it's potentially, this is a hypothetical, 2 months intense, then 2 months off traveling, doing this. Like, do you find that a lot of people stay in it for a long time because it's just honestly too tempting to go somewhere else? Or how did you find that?
For sure. Everyone I know that's worked in yachting or in these high adrenaline environments, it's so tempting to stay and you can stick it out. And I think it just depends on I've been learning a lot about it since I got off yachts, because I had massive burnout for maybe 8 months after I finished up these really intense roles. So, and just coming back to being central and not living in fight or flight necessarily. And I know that a lot of people, when they go on these rotations off, you just spend the first 2 weeks, in bed, sick and tired, because your body is just maxed out for like weeks, months on end. And then it has to come back to regulation somehow. And I think that's a massive thing that the yachting industry and these sort of industries are implementing now in terms of mental health, physical health while you're at work. Yes, you are working massive days, but there is the balance of you're still a human. You can still be tired. It's okay. And yeah, I think there's a lot more education around it now, around mental health and yachting and these sort of industries. But I think that between that, the mix of the highs are so great. And there's also that it's a really cool job. Like, people love talking about it. People love hearing about it. And it's such a cool thing to get to do. And then also we call it the golden handcuffs. Like you said, you're getting paid so well. You barely have any expenses, as Alan expressed. So it's quite hard to leave when you crunch the numbers on what life on land and paying rent and paying for a car and paying for your own insurance is going to look like. It kind of seems like a silly decision to move back to land sometimes, because you see how much you're saving living on a yacht and you get to see these awesome places.
That mental health side, so it is, I think you raised it a little bit when I communicated with you, something you're aware of. I remember going out into the Mentawis, and the captain of the boat would be out there for 4 to 6 months. And it was only about a year after one of our trips, he died in Thailand somewhere. And they discussed the idea that it becomes really hard on the ocean, isolated, and it becomes a bit weird. How did you manage it? And then you have then since changed course. Obviously, you're sitting in an office now, and maybe was that intentional to do something different? So yeah, how did you handle it, and where have you gone, and what were the reasons for it?
I would probably have to credit mum for that to some degree, that I kept my mental health pretty good while I was working on yachts, in terms of she's always taught us to, relax when you can, do some meditation, like come back to yourself. I think that intuition is really good, and kind of understanding where your baseline is. I could get really woo-woo and hippie about this. I won't, but I'm really all about coming back to baseline and just, relaxing into yourself again. And even if it does mean resting, there were certain days where, we'd have a day off in French Polynesia and you'd want to go and hike that mountain, or go snorkeling, or go jet skiing, or go surf that world-class surf break. And I was like, no, for the bigger picture of Amy as a whole and future Amy, I need to stay in bed, and I need to rest, and I need to call my family. I need to have that social time with these people that I don't work with. I need to eat some really yummy meals and really nutritious meals. I need to do these things for me, which in the short term, you don't want to do, because I want to go out and surf that really nice, that really nice surf break. But I think, just being able to come back and have those things that are outside of work on a yacht is super hard. And it can be if you're in these isolated environments, like you said, on the water or at FIFO, where you don't have your normal life around you, in terms of, having a book, having a craft, having, exercise is so great. Even just small meditations, some sort of movement, whether it's yoga or a few weightlifting. And it doesn't need to be to the extreme. It doesn't need to be a whole 90-minute yoga flow, for example, or weightlifting. It can be 10 minutes. Just these little things to do, even setting my alarm 10 minutes early so that I could have a shower and brush my hair and brush my teeth before I got up for work, because I would have loved those extra 10 minutes of sleep. But I was like, this will make me feel better for the day ahead, and I'll be in a better mindset. So I think just doing those things does make a difference. But I am aware that there's a lot more mental health stuff out there now, and a lot of people in these industries are actually implementing it from a top-down level, which is so great to see. And essentially that season in French Polynesia got to a point where I was so burnt out, like in tears every day. My skin was really bad. I was exhausted, definitely not malnourished, but I just wasn't eating properly. I was just, as a cook, you just try different things all day, which isn't super great for your gut if you're just constantly eating little things every 20 minutes. So all these things, and the culmination of, obviously you want to do your job well, but the pressure of perfection is huge in yachting. And the fact that maybe an exaggeration, that you can't say no to anything. Like anything that the guests ask for will be done. So that's quite hard to manage on a personal level and a professional level, to be like, okay, that's feasible, we can do that, or that's actually not possible because we're at an isolated atoll in French Polynesia. I can't get you more burrata, I'm sorry. It's some things are feasible, some things are not. So it's that balance of, yes, I will work really hard, and I do work really hard, but there's only so much one person or a team of people can do in an isolated environment. And I think that's a really good thing to bring back to real life and moving forward. Essentially I wanted to move back to Australia, love Australia. And the Sunny post had been on my radar, and I was just looking at jobs and found a private like PA slash chef job on land, which I'm familiar with. It's essentially what I was doing on boats, but I was really craving that routine and creating a really nice community and being able to wake up and, know where the nearest supermarket is and know where to go get X, Y, Z rather than having to, order it from different countries and get it flowing in and, things like this that you miss when you're not in a stable location.
So what is your job how would you describe what you do now? Is it,
I work for a lady. She owns a few businesses around and so high net wealth lady, and I work as her PA and I manage the retail side of the business that she owns, and I do some cooking for her.
Wicked. And I mentioned there might be a future where you're starting, where does Amy head? I mean, because this is the thing now, compared to a degree, your list of things you can do, your qualifications, your CV is massive. Like, what do you see and where would you like to go ideally? What are your plans?
As you said at the start, I would love to go into my own business at some stage because, as you said, like having done a qualification and having all this different life experience, I do know that I'm just 28, so I'm still learning and still growing and still figuring out what I want to do. I feel like my 20s is like the trial decade to some degree, just trying as many different things as I can. But yes, I think owning a business is in the future, or creating a business that aligns with what I have done and what I know, but also where I see gaps in those markets. So in terms of concierge or mental health within these industries, or there's a lot of different little things that could work really well. It also depends, I guess, where I physically want to end up in the long term. I will come back to New Zealand eventually. I love New Zealand. I miss it so much. I feel such a connection to the land and the people of New Zealand. So I definitely will be back. But I am loving Australia at the moment. I think that the career opportunities and the opportunities in general here are massive compared to New Zealand, and that could then translate from taking some of these ideas that already exist in Australia and bringing them across to New Zealand. Still just feeling it out though, but in general, I'm really happy with my role at the moment and I'm learning a lot, but they can see, my future adapting and changing as it naturally will.
Some of your mates from QRC, have you got a couple of examples where they shot off to? Do you have them? Give us some examples.
Yeah. There's a group of 5 of us girls that got really close and we're all still really good mates. One of them actually just messaged me. One of them works in Auckland for a high travel agency. One of them is still working on superyachts, one of the Google owners' yachts. One of them works in Queenstown for a skydiving company. And then one of them is actually in Nelson. So everyone's kind of gone about their thing. We're all pretty much stuck in tourism for a couple of years, and then we've all kind of branched out to some degree. But again, like you said, it's all under the tourism umbrella. But different draw cards, and everyone's got their positives and their negatives of the work that they do, and the perks of the job that you get with each job. But it's really nice to keep in touch with them, and we will all be reunited this summer in Queenstown, which will be lovely.
Cool. It's funny, we feel guilty for some reason talking about the negatives of our job. I mean, everyone has them. But
it's kind of nice. It brings like a realness to it. People, that I speak to, that I mention that I've worked on super yachts or things, because it's quite like an elusive industry. People automatically assume that it's awesome. I mean, the first question you get is it like below deck? And they ask more about it. And it's good to bring a bit of a human, not a negativity to it, but a bit of a humanness where it's like, yes, it is amazing. And yes, this is my camera roll of all the places I've been to, but this is the real side of it. And, it is so hard. It's so hard to keep in touch with your family. It's all these different things. It's nice to bring a realness to it, because I think it can get glorified a lot. And people that are sitting in an office and looking at these photos, it can feel quite out of reach or out of, like, not realistic, whereas it's super realistic, but it's also a lot of hard work.
Yeah. Now, this has been wicked. I can definitely now, when a kid says I want to go there, I feel like I can really go, look, go, and I do like that idea. It's not tertiary or bust. Looking for these sorts of courses, and rather than jump straight onto a boat, go and get your qualifications, build that CV if you want a really rich career, because then you might end up owning your own, which hopefully you do. Thank you so much for answering my message to participate. You were definitely on their website, so I knew you were one of their stars. But yeah, no, really cool to talk, and love that you still love New Zealand, because yeah, that's something we always touch on with our overseas guests is, yeah, so cool.
I was going to say, you hear about it so much growing up in New Zealand of how cool New Zealand is and people come and visit and stuff. But then I feel you have to move away to really appreciate how good it is.
I wanted to ask about like tourism in general, or the umbrella you're speaking of and the role you're doing now. Like, in some ways it is a service industry because you're there, like, and I'm thinking back to the super yachts because that's a very tangible example of even when you were feeling super burnt out and run down, the people paying for you to be there don't want to see that, right? Like, so is that kind of a part of it, of like people, not people pleasing, but coming across and having to really be a bit performative, not in like it's a little bit fake, but is that part of it when you're not feeling good?
Massively, yeah. And I mean, everyone has their good days, their bad days, these sorts of things. And then you add a really stressful job into the mix. And yeah, you are completely correct that they don't want to see you upset or, I have countless memories of having to like something triggering me or someone saying something like that something wasn't good enough or, things like this, which are all natural things in a job. But because you're just so burnt out and tired and I have to go like hide down in my cabin and have a cry, because you can't show that in front of these people and they're paying so much money to be on this boat. But I think it definitely is a massive, it's people pleasing to some degree, like you said. It's also a job, and you constantly have in the top of your mind how much money they're paying for you to be at their service, which is tricky. And I guess it's quite common across the whole tourism industry, whether they're doing a 1 week charter in French Polynesia on a luxury yacht or they're doing a bungee jump, which is going to last 5 minutes. That's a once in a lifetime experience for them. So you do have to keep that in mind that they're only going to do this once probably. So they need to have the best experience possible. And if you can do that for them, they'll remember that for the rest of their lives, either as a positive or a negative. So if you can just show up and just suck it up, yeah, it makes a massive difference to them. But on the flip side of that, looking after your own mental and physical health.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Last question, and you would have heard it when you listened to Ellen's, but we always ask if you could go back Amy to Amy in that year 12 or 13 stage, what advice specifically would you give yourself?
Honestly, given everything that I have done and seen and learned, it's not really anything to do with tourism, but financial literacy, I think, would be a massive. Working on yachts, you're earning really great money. Working in tourism, I mean, it's quite dependent on weather. Like, it's a very weather dependent industry. But I think financial literacy, I think finance in general is a massive burden for so many people in general. And I think that being able to have the savings and the financial freedom and even like a small amount of investments allows you to expand your mindset as to what you could do or where you could go. Say you have $50 saved, you're not going to be able to get a flight to Thailand to work on a dive boat if that's what you really want to do. Whereas if you have those few more savings and that financial literacy and the investments, I think it just opens up a lot more opportunities, which is a very privileged thing to say. But yeah, I mean, you have to work hard to make money. But using that money wisely, I think, can open up a lot more opportunities. And even having the disposable income that I'd save to be able to do the STCW course, for example, is about $2,000 plus a medical exam, which is, for $500. Having that $2,500 saved to be able to do this, which then led to this massive world of opportunity and seeing the most amazing things. So, yeah, I think that would be a massive thing for me, is to deep dive into that, and like compounding interest is your best friend. So just having those sorts of things, I think, not really tourism related, but I think it's
And
It's
just
been it's been said over and over by so many guests that if
Yeah.
only they had known the financial side. I mean, you're gonna leave school and either get loans or do a business, and some people, like myself, have no idea. So no, yeah, definitely
between
a thing we hear.
between the money, I think if Ludlam and I had our way with the with the education system, I would want to be doing the financial literacy because also, like you mentioned, it's cash flow. Being able to do the opportunity, which could exponentially result in more money being earned. But if
Yeah.
you're like curtailed at the very first step, that's a burden. And then sleep. I want to teach kids about sleep and what that actually does for you.
Oh, it's like the pillar. Like you can be doing everything right. If you're not sleeping, like it's all going out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
what
just back to basic pay. It's like just eating well, like having a bit of a social life, sleeping, like, oh,
heard it here first.
Yeah. Hey, look, thanks so much for your time, Amy. Get that aircon on, and we'll Grace will reach out, but I really appreciate your time and your efforts with us, and I'm sure kids will love this. So
thank you.